The conference room on the 14th floor buzzed with casual conversation as engineers and leads settled into their seats, coffee cups steaming, laptops open to Slack and spreadsheets. It was supposed to be a routine weekly innovation sync, where team members could pitch new ideas to improve internal systems. Most of the time, it was low stakes. People nodded politely, offered surface-level feedback, then returned to their actual work. But this time, Malik Owens was presenting. Malik wasn't new. He'd been at the company for almost 3 years. But somehow, he was still treated like an outsider. Polite smiles, the occasional good point, but rarely brought in on high-impact projects. The kind of technical mind people respected but never promoted. The kind of man who had to prove himself twice over and still be ready to apologize for it. As he connected his laptop to the main screen, the energy in the room shifted. A few people glanced up from their phones. One of the senior engineers, Carter, leaned back in his chair and whispered something to the guy next to him. A quiet chuckle followed. Malik noticed, but didn't react. He clicked to the first slide. It was clean, minimal. Just the title, Real-Time Load Balancing Optimization, a New Model. He started speaking, calm, clear, direct. He explained the inefficiencies in their current traffic distribution system, how their latency spikes during peak hours were avoidable, and how his model could address that in near real time. Slide 2. Graphs. Slide 3. System architecture. Slide 4. Cost analysis. And then it started. The soft sound of someone trying and failing to suppress a laugh. It came from the back of the room. Then another chuckle from the side. A hand covered a smirk. Eyes were exchanged. Carter shifted in his seat and, without even lowering his voice, muttered, "We already tried this. In 2019. Didn't work then either." Someone else said, "Bold move, though." The room wasn't fully laughing, but it was humming with ridicule. Malik paused. He looked around the room, not for long, just a moment. Then he looked down at his laptop, clicked to the final slide, a closing summary, and said, "That concludes the overview." Silence. Not the respectful kind. The awkward kind. The "we didn't expect you to finish without defending yourself" kind. Malik closed his laptop. He didn't wait for feedback, didn't fumble to explain, didn't ask for validation. He simply returned to his seat, back straight, face unreadable. And in that moment, the laughter stopped. Because no matter how loudly they'd tried to dismiss him, he didn't give them the satisfaction of reacting. He left them with something far more uncomfortable than anger. He left them with their own silence. The meeting ended without ceremony. A few people mumbled half-hearted goodbyes. Most just closed their laptops and filed out. Malik stayed seated for a moment, letting the room empty around him. He didn't need to pretend to be okay. He was okay. Because while they laughed, what none of them knew, what none of them even bothered to ask, was that his model wasn't a theory. It was already working. 2 months ago, Malik had quietly partnered with a senior systems engineer at one of their firm's largest enterprise clients, a company dealing with massive load issues during international rollout spikes. Malik had heard about their struggles during a vendor support call and offered to prototype a solution over the weekend. No red tape, no team review, just results. They tested it on a subset of their traffic nodes. The latency dropped immediately, more than 25% during peak hours. Server costs followed. Error rates went down. Customers noticed. Executives noticed. The client emailed Malik personally to thank him. They called it the smoothest rollout they'd had in 2 years. The internal team at Malik's own company didn't even know the pilot existed. He hadn't told anyone. He knew what would happen if he pitched it too soon. If he shared it too early, without the hard numbers, without the backing, without protection, it would be torn apart, dismissed as interesting, ambitious, or his personal favorite, a good learning exercise. So he waited. Now, the results were undeniable. He had real-time monitoring data, month-over-month comparisons, and a signed letter from the client requesting a full implementation, and offering to sponsor the project internally if needed. Malik had built a private case study that not only proved his model, it exposed just how wrong the room had been. Back at his desk, Malik opened a folder on his desktop labeled Deliverables. Inside, charts, logs, timestamps, annotated graphs, and screenshots of server performance before and after deployment. He added a new subfolder, quietly labeled, For When They Ask Again. He didn't need to defend himself in meetings anymore. He didn't need to argue with people who never listened in the first place. What he had now was more powerful than approval. He had evidence, he had leverage, and most of all, he had timing, because people only laugh when they believe they're safe, when they assume the joke won't cost them anything. But Malik wasn't done. And the next time they heard about his work, they wouldn't be laughing. They'd be asking him for a seat at the table he'd already outgrown. The email arrived late Wednesday afternoon. It was from Corporate Communications. Subject line: Quarterly Innovation Showcase. Presenter Final Roster Announced. Malik didn't open it right away. He knew what it was. Every quarter, the company hosted a flashy internal event where employees presented breakthrough ideas to a mix of executives, investors, and media partners. A chance to shine, or, more often, to be politely ignored in favor of the same few names and faces. But this time, things were different. Last week, Malik had submitted the same model he'd presented in the meeting, but with one key addition: the live pilot data. He had backed it up with clean visuals, stacked before and after comparisons, and a letter from the client's CTO praising the solution. He didn't even dress it up. No buzzwords, no fluff. Just truth. When he finally opened the email, he scrolled down the list. There were familiar names, the usual crowd. Product managers from flashy teams, UX leads with sleek design mockups, a guy from marketing presenting a brand refresh framework. Then, at the bottom of the list, Session 8, Real-Time Load Optimization, Malik Owens, Senior Systems Architect, Back-End Engineering. They had put him last, a small move, subtle, maybe unintentional, but deliberate enough that Malik noticed. In the showcase world, last was usually a soft burial. When everyone was tired, when the applause had thinned out, when the VPs had already slipped out. He smiled, because they didn't understand what he had in his deck. He didn't need to come first. He just needed them to stay in the room long enough to watch everything fall silent. That night, Malik stayed late in the office, perfecting the deck. He removed every sentence that didn't serve a purpose. Every bullet point became a number. Every claim became a graph. Every slide became proof. He wasn't trying to sell them anymore. He was building something they couldn't refute. Then, quietly, he added one final slide, a single screenshot of an email. From CTO, Global Enterprise Client, to VP, Solutions. Engineering subject, Malik Owens deployment. This solution didn't just meet expectations. It redefined what we thought was possible. We want full adoption across all data centers. Malik's work deserves attention and support, no commentary. No bold text, just the email. He closed the laptop, exhaled slowly, and looked around the empty office. It was quiet, peaceful. He could still hear faint laughter in the back of his mind from that conference room, but it no longer echoed the same way. Because this time, he wouldn't be walking into a room hoping they took him seriously. This time, he would walk in knowing that the only sound left would be silence. The day of the showcase arrived with little fanfare. The office buzzed with activity as people adjusted ties, tested microphones, and rushed to print last-minute slides. The event space on the 16th floor had been transformed. Folding chairs in neat rows, stage lighting aimed at a branded backdrop, a sleek digital clock counting down between speakers. Malik arrived early, unnoticed. No one greeted him. No one asked if he needed help setting up. His name badge wasn't even printed, just a blank guest tag written on with a Sharpie. He didn't care. He took a seat in the back and watched the presentations roll by. A marketing exec showed off a new campaign slogan, Built to Belong. A data analyst revealed a colorful dashboard nobody understood but everyone clapped for. There were buzzwords, Applause breaks, polite laughter. The room was filled with nodding heads and empty affirmation. By the time his name was called, last on the schedule, just as expected, half the coffee had gone cold. A few people had slipped out. Some looked at their phones. The MC barely pronounced his name correctly. Malik stepped onto the stage with calm precision. He didn't smile, didn't scan for friendly faces. He just opened his laptop, connected the feed, and clicked. The first slide was the same. Real-time load optimization, a working model. No one reacted. Then came the architecture diagram. Simple, elegant, showing how traffic rerouting could adapt dynamically to live server load. Eyes narrowed slightly. Phones were lowered. By the third slide, a live client dashboard showing before and after metrics, the room had gone quiet. CPU usage down 18%. Latency dropped by 27%. Cost savings up, zero downtime. Murmurs. He clicked again. Testimonial quotes filled the screen. This system stabilized our infrastructure within days. It's the first time our clients didn't notice a rollout, because nothing broke. Then, the final slide. A screenshot of the email. Not from a colleague, not from someone internal. From a CTO of a global client. Addressed to Malik by name. You could hear a breath catch somewhere near the front row. No voiceover. No pitch. Just proof. He turned to the crowd, still quiet, and said, I was told this idea had already failed. That it wasn't viable. That it lacked experience, but we deployed it, and it worked. The numbers you just saw aren't theory. They're running live as we speak. I don't expect applause. I just want to remind this room that innovation doesn't always come dressed the way you expect. Then he closed his laptop. Silence. Not stunned silence. Not embarrassed silence. Gutted silence. The kind that comes when everyone in the room realizes they weren't just wrong. They were loud about it. He nodded once and walked off the stage, not waiting for questions, not waiting for recognition. Behind him, the screen was still glowing, and no one was laughing now. The fallout was quiet but immediate. The same people who had laughed during Malik's first meeting now passed him in the hallway with awkward smiles and unreadable eyes. Some offered short nods, others avoided his gaze entirely. No one brought up the showcase directly, but within hours, the email started pinging. Would love to grab 15 minutes with you. Curious to learn more about your model. Really impressed with your presentation. Let's connect. Just wanted to say, great work. We should have more visibility into projects like yours. Malik didn't respond to any of them. Instead, he went back to his desk and kept working. Same desk, same chair, same 3-year-old monitor with the cracked base no one ever bothered to replace. Only now, the silence around him wasn't dismissal. It was discomfort. The kind that comes when people realize the man they mocked had been right all along. And worse, he never needed their approval to be right. Later that afternoon, an internal announcement hit Slack. The CTO had launched a new initiative, Engineering Futures, a task force focused on surfacing underleveraged innovations across teams, a chance to amplify unheard voices. The email included a note. This initiative was inspired by recent internal presentations that challenged our assumptions and showed the power of execution over ego. Malik's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. At 4:47 p.m., his manager scheduled a one-on-one titled Check-in, Next Steps, Post-Presentation. The irony almost made him laugh. This was the same man who'd sat silently while others laughed. The same manager who never once championed his work. The same one who called his original proposal ambitious, then did nothing to defend him. When the meeting started the next morning, Malik joined without his camera. No smile, no small talk. His manager stumbled through the intro. I just wanted to say, great work. The presentation, it really opened a lot of eyes. We're thinking of folding your model into the larger Q4 optimization strategy. I'd love for you to lead that. Malik let the silence sit for a moment. Then, calmly, he replied, I'm happy to lead, but I'd like it documented. My name on the model, my name on the rollout. And if it succeeds, my name on the outcome. His manager blinked, surprised. Of course. Absolutely, Malik didn't thank him. He didn't need to, because for the first time, he wasn't asking to be seen. He was claiming what was already his. Weeks passed, but the echo of Malik's presentation didn't fade. The numbers from the live pilot kept improving, and the client expanded the deployment to all 5 of their regional data centers. Internally, engineers began referencing Malik's model in design reviews. Even teams who hadn't worked with him before were citing his framework, trying to adapt it to their own systems. His inbox, once quiet and overlooked, now buzzed daily with meeting requests, collaboration pitches, and flattery disguised as curiosity. People who had barely acknowledged him before were suddenly eager to pick his brain. Some masked their previous behavior under professional praise. Others avoided the subject altogether, pretending as if the laughter never happened. Malik let them. He didn't waste time correcting the narrative, he just kept building. But something more important began to shift beneath the surface. New hires, especially those who looked like him, started seeking him out. Not to ask for favors, but for presence, for advice, for reassurance that they weren't crazy for feeling the tension they weren't supposed to name. They told him what he already knew, that even in modern offices with diversity statements printed on glass walls, the quiet rules still screamed. But now, they had a counterexample. They had him. One afternoon, during a casual coffee chat with a young black software engineer from the AI team, the conversation turned personal. "I watched your presentation," the engineer said. "I've never seen a room flip like that. You didn't even raise your voice." Malik smiled faintly. "Didn't need to." The engineer leaned in. "But how do you work with people who disrespected you? Who laughed in your face?" Malik looked out the window for a moment before answering. "I don't work with their memory of me. I work with the truth of what I've built. If that makes them uncomfortable, that's not my burden to carry." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was correction. And Malik realized that was more powerful, more lasting. He no longer needed to convince anyone of his value. The data had done that. The silence that followed had done that. And as much as they tried to reclaim the narrative, it was too late. The model bore his name, and every win they now tried to wrap themselves around only pointed back to the moment they failed to recognize genius in real time. They had their second chance, but Malik, he was already 2 moves ahead. Months later, the company rolled out the system Malik had built across its entire infrastructure. The model became the foundation for a new line of services. Internally, it was hailed as a breakthrough. Externally, clients noticed faster response times, fewer outages, smoother integrations. Earnings calls began referencing advanced traffic solutions. Tech blogs speculated about the architecture. And quietly, within the walls of the company, Malik Owens became a name people suddenly claimed to have always believed in. But Malik never forgot that room, the silence after the laughter, the way it turned from mockery to discomfort, then to awe, then to quiet guilt. Not because he held on to the pain, but because it reminded him just how easily people confuse power with presence. They had all the attention, but he had the proof. One evening, well after business hours, Malik sat alone in the same glass-walled conference room where they had once laughed at him. The space was empty now, just a ghost of that day. He sat at the end of the table, looking over final implementation reports, client adoption charts, and onboarding strategies for a new initiative. Across the glass, his reflection looked back, steady, composed, unshaken. The door opened softly. A young black intern poked her head in. She looked nervous. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I wanted to ask something." Malik nodded, closing his laptop. "Go ahead." She stepped in, holding a notepad to her chest. "When people dismiss you, when they doubt you out loud, how do you not let it get to you?" Malik looked at her for a moment, then gestured for her to sit. "I used to think I had to win them over," he said. "Make them see me. Make them understand. But that takes too much energy, and it gives them too much power." "So, what do you do instead?" she asked. He leaned forward. "I build so well they can't afford to ignore me." She smiled quietly. He saw something in her eyes. Not just admiration, but reflection. The same spark he had years ago. The same ache to be seen, to be taken seriously, to be heard, without having to yell. "Thank you," she said, rising to leave. Malik watched her go, then turned back to his laptop. Outside the glass walls, the office was quiet. No more whispers, no more smirks. Just the soft hum of servers running on the very system they once laughed at. Silence, not as dismissal, but as respect.